I guess it's a tough question to ask, but it strikes me you never really had a right to reply to it. That David Zaslav, who's not a man I'm a great fan of really, gave an interview where he talked about the deletion of Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Horn, and his quote was, "We decided that we had to have the courage." And he talked about the courage to delete, and this was reported widely, and by the look in your eyes, for those listening on audio, I don't think you've heard that quote before.
No, I had not.
Hello, it's Simon from Film Stories. You're about to see an interview with director, production designer, art director, visual development artist Michael Kurinsky. I'm just putting this at the start because I'm running this interview long for fear that bits of it are just going to be a little bit clickbaity. Michael Kurinsky was in the Hollywood trade press a few years ago as director of the film Scoob Holiday Haunt. Now, just to set this up, Scoob Holiday Haunt is the movie that Warner Brothers Discovery decided alongside Batgirl to delete. Basically just that. It decided not to release the film, even though it was pretty much completed, and Michael Kurinsky is going to get into this story for us in exchange for a tax credit. And it's just a bit of background just to set that up. However, what this interview also tells the story of is a man who grew up loving Looney Tunes, grew up loving animation, grew up loving art, grew up loving the Beatles and Ted Lasso. And so you're going to get pretty much his career start to where we are now, with some incredible stories along the way. And I think that's all the setup you need. A big hello to Michael Kurinsky, who, even though I'm here in the UK with a weird Kermit behind me, you're in America with what looks like a Ted Lasso sign behind you.
Absolutely.
So where are you, Michael Kurinsky, and why have you got a Ted Lasso sign behind you?
I am in Woodland Hills, California. It's a suburb outside of Los Angeles, and I've been here for a long time with my wife and daughter.
And Ted Lasso is presumably a thing. We've talked. I'm cheating a little bit for those listening and watching. We briefly talked about this before, but tell me about your Ted Lasso love.
Well, I'll tell you a couple of things actually, and it'll maybe snowball into something that I know you want to get into. But so Ted Lasso was just this show that connected with me, and I think with a lot of people at the time. I mean, it came out during COVID. Yeah. And I think a lot of us were emotionally hurting inside or feeling insecure, just having a lot of feelings, having all the feelings. And this was a show that came out and addressed a lot of those things about anxiety and about a lot of things like that. And it did it with kindness. It did it without snarkiness, which is what I'm all about. And I found I related with characters in that show more than I had any other show for decades. And,
okay.
Yeah. And it just became one of my favorite things. I have watched the first season in entirety 14 times. I've watched the second...
1-4. Okay.
1-4.
Yeah.
The second one 11 times, and the third season about 8 times. So I've watched this. It's just a thing that I put on, especially season 1, when I'm going through a rough patch, and it makes me feel better. And it's amazing that there's something out there that you can put on that does that it's sort of like entertaining therapy.
Isn't that interesting? I think most of us have a comfort show. I mean, mine is 1980s Doctor Who. I'm a proper old school nerd in that regard. But if I'm having a weak moment, or a moment where the world feels like it's crushing in, I put on the Doctor Who that nobody else seems to like, and it's just like a 25-30 minute burst into my veins, really, of something that I need. I also sort of regret and miss video games that you could play in 20-30 minute bursts as well.
Oh, yeah.
That also used to do it for me. Now a video game requires a commitment, a mortgage, always be online, or deciphering 14 hours of plot to work out whether I should hit a triangle.
Exactly.
And I just want to play Pac-Man.
I know. I was a Defender guy. If anyone
Defender. Okay.
I was a big Defender standout.
Are you a video game nerd? Oh, okay.
Only old school, like literally
Yeah, proper
upright
games.
stand-up ones. I know I don't really play any yeah, after I haven't had a video game console since Atari.
The
So
2600.
I am dating myself. So
Do you still own it? Because that's your pension
no.
scheme, surely.
No, I should. That would be amazing if I
I've still
still
got
had.
mine. I've still got mine. If whichever
Done.
one of us hits rock bottom first gives the other the console. That should,
Okay.
that should be it. It's not a competition, but that notwithstanding, there is a bit that one of the things about the internet is it's very good at like kind of reducing us to small amounts of text that are supposed to explain all of our career. And so I was looking you up online, as you might expect ahead of this. And you've got this bio at ArtStation. And it just talks about right at the start there, I think it's in there, where it says 10-year-old Michael liked to paint and liked color and things like that. I wonder if you can take me to kind of 10-year-old Michael. What was 10-year-old Michael interested in?
Okay, so I mean the painting, the drawing thing, like according to my mom, started when I was 3.
Okay.
But te I will tell you specifically, 10-year-old is the age because that was 1977. I was 10 years old,
You
and a
don't look
little.
that old. Did I say that
And
quickly enough?
thank you.
That's the test. Yeah.
I think. Well, it's really good filters on Zoom. Thanks. Um, 10-year-old Michael, 1977, Star Wars came out.
Okay.
And that kind of changed everything for me. And it opened up this sort of creative thing where because we didn't have the internet,
Yeah.
because we didn't have this stuff, and we were relegated to a handful of publicity stills that made it into Time magazine or whatever. There were no art of books.
Yeah.
They eventually got those out. But in the beginning, you had guys like me, people like me that wanted to have those images around them. And since it was the same ones,
Yeah.
I started drawing those things. What does it look like from that angle? What does he look like from that angle? Because I only see that one picture.
Yeah.
So Star Wars sort of cracked open. I should say the first movie that did that, it was the 1933 King Kong.
You're not the
But
first person to cite that. Yep.
Okay, I mean, very much so. That started a lot of drawing and creative juices flowing in me at age 8. But 10, Star Wars broke it wide open.
Yeah.
And after that, I was drawing constantly and creating things and just being like, I had all those action. I have the figures, those I still have.
I'll
I don't
swap
have
you.
the
Right.
Atari,
Right.
but
Okay. There's a
I
deal
have
going on here.
dozens and dozens of original Star Wars figures right over there in that closet. And
Okay. Can I distract you long enough and just send
yeah.
someone in? Um, we can do
Oh,
one
and
of those online hacking videos, like where the
you
person's
want
yeah, yeah, okay.
you want to come in because I have one of the rares. I have the blue snaggletooth for your listeners out there that know what that is. Look it up.
You're gonna tut at me down this though, but my fantasy film, because I was a couple of years behind you, and I went to Star Wars and really enjoyed Star Wars. Mine was Krull.
Oh, okay.
And Krull, I watched a lot, and the score. See, I can straight away see in your eyes the disappointment, though. Yeah,
No.
I saw the score to Krull is one of James Horner's finest scores, and that's not said lightly at all. But it was Krull and Superman 2 and Superman 3, a film for which I have the most enormous soft spot in the world, not least because the woman coming out of the computer terrified the bejesus
It
out of me.
terrified everybody.
Absolutely right.
Everybody.
Absolutely right. But so where were you living when you watched Star Wars?
I was in a small town in Connecticut called Ridgefield, Connecticut.
So for those of us not in the US, how far is that from Hollywood?
About as far as you can get
Yeah.
from it. It's
So
3,000 plus miles.
so what made you the person who watched Star Wars, loved Star Wars, did all the drawings, but found a career? Why were you different? Because lots of people drew Star Wars pictures. We're
True.
talking here decades later because that went a little bit deeper for you.
Um, I think since I was a young person, I've always been introverted and I'm best sometimes by myself.
Yeah.
And those times that I'm by myself were always filled with doing something creative,
Yeah.
playing with those figures, but more than just playing with the figures, like writing stories and building sets out of Dixie cups and cardboard shoeboxes. So, and I was making movies with these things and creating storylines that didn't exist from the movie. I was taking it beyond the movie
Yeah.
and drawing and all these things. Though that was my I was an awkward kid, awkward in my own
Yeah.
skin
Yeah.
and had hard times with that. And that was my therapy to go into my room and create something. So I have to believe that all of that eventually I needed to find the outlet as I became an adult to continue doing that, you know?
So, but if we funnel that down still more, so those are all the people who
Okay.
saw Star Wars. Those are the people who drew lots of pictures. Those are the people who fashioned it towards a career and needed an outlet. We're still here.
hmm
What got you to there?
So, coming out here, coming to Los Angeles. So
Yeah.
I went to school in Arizona. Nothing glamorous. It was University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, which had actually an exceptional art program
Yeah.
there. And specifically, I went in as a fine arts major, but they had a really good illustration program. And in the 80s, illustration was very hot. The 70s
Yes.
and 80s was like all about hand done illustration.
Yep.
So I had this thought that I was going to be a great illustrator one day. So
Yeah.
I graduated with fine arts with an emphasis in illustration. And my then girlfriend, who I met in college, now wife, we both wanted to get into the entertainment industry. And we said, let's take a chance on ourselves. And we came out to Los Angeles with no jobs, no place to live, just my Nissan Pulsar car filled
Yeah.
with all the clothes that we owned and a television set, an old
You've got
television.
all the vitals there. Yeah.
That's all we had. And we had my friend Scott's futon
And how
that
old
he
were you at the point you made that jump? I so you took a
22.
massive risk. 20, so 22, you take this massive risk.
Yeah.
And the two of you come out with a television and some clothes and a car. What does week 3.5 of that risk look like?
Oh my gosh. Week three and a half was just walking down. So Venice Beach is a very famous beach here in
Yeah.
California, known for like crazy people and everything. I remember just I was living at my friend Scott's on his futon with Annalise, my wife. And we were both just looking for jobs, anything, and walking up and down the crazy Venice beach.
Yeah.
And that was my life then. And then, um, how did it start? How did that start? So I said to myself, I was never going, I really, really was like earnest about this. I said, I am not going to make a dollar that isn't something art related. Not that there's anything wrong with flipping burgers or whatever. I just said, if I can make sure that it's somehow creative, that's still the path. Yes.
And
So
that was at 22.
that was at 22. It was like, I want to do that. And I did pick up some illustration gigs here and there, little things. And then I got this job. I remember being on Sunset Boulevard
Yeah.
and at the famous Tower Record store
Yeah.
which is now gone, which is sad because it was such a great place to just go kill several hours of your day just looking through vinyl and at the time cassettes and things like that. And anyway, outside of that Tower Records, they had these large hand painted billboards for whatever the record du jour was, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing. And then there was a name of the company that did that on the bottom. And I was like, I could do this. This is, and at least it would be painting.
Yeah.
I went to this billboard company and worked for them for a year, painting billboards that were hung all over Los Angeles. And my favorite thing I ever painted for them were 50-foot high likenesses of the Beatles, which is my favorite group and my favorite thing of all time is the
Show us your
Beatles.
guitar, Michael. I know where this is going.
And it was 50 feet, they were 50 feet high and they were on top of the Capitol Records building for, I can't remember what year anniversary for when Capitol acquired the American rights for the Beatles.
Yeah.
And it was the greatest thing I ever got to do with that company. And my love and knowledge for the Beatles really helped because the photo that they wanted me to do was from one of their Ed Sullivan
Yeah, yeah,
appearances.
yeah.
And they gave me this 8.5 by 10. So if you picture this is the size of the photograph, this is the size of the Beatles in the photograph, this is the size of their heads in that photograph. But over there, I have about 20 different Beatles books. And
Yeah.
so I found the right era and everything like that. And I found better reference and I painted, and I swear they looked, you knew who they were, and they were huge.
So
The head
two
was as tall as me.
two things. Number one, a few years ago when Robert Zemeckis was going to do his new animated take on Yellow Submarine, did you
Yeah, I
track
saw
him
that.
down and send him a resume? That's
I
number
should
one. You should have.
have.
But number two, do you have pictures of that? Because
I
I mean,
do.
we're talking about a piece of artwork that would have been seen by hundreds of thousands of people.
It was positioned so that when you went on the freeway called the
Yeah,
101
yeah,
Hollywood Freeway, um, you couldn't not see it because it was on top of the building, and you got a glimpse for like 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000 if you were going, 60 miles an hour. And then eventually, when they took them off the roof, they put them down in this back parking lot and kind of screwed them to this wall. And I have pictures of me
that.
standing in front of them
Have you
that I
sent
will
it to
send,
them?
that I will send you. Uh,
Send it to Paul McCartney. He might.
oh my God, he's Paul McCartney's my hero. You can't even say his name and I don't get choked up. So,
And that is his guitar, or is that a
well,
replica?
this is the same company, Hofner,
Yeah,
that made his first guitar that we became associated with him
yeah.
when the Beatles broke. This is made from the Hofner factory. It is a replica and made to exact standards of that same guitar that you see in every picture of him from 1964. So
So
I've been
I'm
teaching
what I'm
myself
what
to play bass.
I might be altering what I trade my Atari 2600 for, but we might come back to that.
Okay.
So you go from drawing enormous images of the Beatles seen by presumably everyone in Los Angeles, the most powerful people, the people selling newspapers, everything.
Yeah,
The next bit I found that you'd done was that you got a job doing painting backgrounds for commercials off the back of that. So
exactly right.
what does painting those billboards get you? How does that get you the next job? Do you walk in and say, I did that?
Well, I had my portfolio from
Yeah.
school, which was an illustrator's
Was it 50
portfolio.
foot high? That would be the best job interview if you
Yeah.
walk in with that. Yeah.
I did have a few photographs of some of my favorite
Yeah.
billboards I did in there just as photographs, but mostly it was all my illustration work that I had done at University of Arizona. And it was one of those things where a friend of a friend of a friend was like, "Hey, painting is painting, illustrating is illustrating. I have this friend, they
Yeah.
do animated TV commercials for like cereal and the prize inside a cereal box. They need two paintings done for this commercial. And I recommended you. And I was like, I've never painted backgrounds, but painting is painting, illustrating is
Yeah.
illustrating. So I went, I got the job. I did these two backgrounds for them. And this is 100% true story. I remember several months later, I was unemployed,
Yeah.
and I mean, I was working at the billboard company, but like I wasn't like doing what I wanted to do. I remember sitting in my apartment, and the commercial came on, and I saw my two backgrounds
Yeah.
go by, and I was like, it was so cool. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've always loved animation. Everybody who knows me knows I can spout trivia about, especially like the Warner Brothers cartoons. I can recite whole Warner Brothers shorts because I was such a nerd about those. So getting into animation seemed like the thing, and I then made that my focus.
Yeah.
Is after I did it, I worked for a couple of mom and pop TV commercial places and got my chops, a little bit better understanding about animation. And then I remember going to a magazine stand and picking up the latest copy of Animation magazine.
Yeah.
It was not too long after The Lion King had come out, and they built the new animation building for Walt Disney Feature Animation.
Yeah.
And there was a two-page spread with a picture of that building on it. And it said, "We want your portfolio." They were mass hiring. And I
Yes.
went, okay, this is it. Took my portfolio. I go into Walt Disney Feature Animation. There was this round desk and this woman named Dee, who was the receptionist there. That desk must have been 8 feet deep with portfolios, just because, again, this was before internet,
Yeah. Yeah.
before
Yeah.
digital, before it was all physical. There must have been portfolios, I'm telling you, 8 feet deep, leaning against that desk. And she just goes, "Put it down anywhere, fill this form out, we'll get back to you." I'm like, I'm never going to see this portfolio ever again. It is going to be lost in this sea
Yeah.
of things. But luckily, a month later, because it had to make these rounds and certain people had to evaluate it, a month later, I got a call to do a test, which was basically to copy an already existing background painting from The Lion King. I
Yeah.
had 5 days to do it. I did it. That got evaluated, and I got a job as a trainee painting backgrounds at Walt Disney Feature Animation. And from then on, everything took off.
It's interesting, isn't it, you saying about that table of portfolios?
Oh my God.
Because when I was looking for a job, I always assumed I wouldn't be found. And I'd imagine the positions you've been in, you've looked for to employ people since. And what
Sure.
nobody tells people who are looking for a job is it's just as difficult to find people for a job
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I don't think that story comes out. And so I would bet that someone looked at all of those portfolios. No,
Yeah.
even though it might look as hopeless as anything, I just think no one ever says that side of it. So it's
True.
really hard to find good people.
It is hard to find good people. Everything, and this is a cliche that you hear all the time, but it's absolutely true. Everything is about timing. It's all about
Yeah,
timing. Be it
talent meets luck meets time.
right.
Yeah,
I love that. That's how I got into feature animation. And when I've been staffing for movies, when I eventually became leads on movies,
yeah,
it's you have these wish lists. You work with these people in your past and everybody, and you have this kind of perfect crew in your head. It's like, oh, if I ever get the chance, I got the chance, and you start putting the calls out, and people are, sorry, I'm on this project and
yeah,
I'm in contract for the next year and I
yeah.
can't. So you start going down your list, just trying to get the right people. And yeah, it's just all, yeah, timing and just is a big factor in it.
So you were 22. You were 22. You had I hope it was a comfortable futon because it's come up a couple of times. You had the cut. Okay, 6 out of 10 futon. Let's go with that. How long are we talking before you land that trainee job at Disney? How long have you been
Um, little under 2 years.
in that 2 years? Was there a wobble? Was there a point where you were questioning your self-belief whether this would actually happen?
Um, my cat is meowing
Cats,
now
cats,
very strangely.
cats are very, very welcome. That's fine.
Okay. No, because uh, look, I did believe. I believed in myself, and my
Yeah,
my girlfriend believed in, and it was like, do this or I don't know what I'm going to do.
yeah,
I don't know what else I'm good at. This is my one thing that I have. And over the years, I found I have lots of things, but at that time, it was
yeah.
like Mike paints things and does it okay. it was that or nothing. So um, I think
That's great.
right before the Disney job, I got I answered an ad in the newspaper for McDonnell Douglas, who builds aircrafts. They build literally airplanes, was
Yeah,
looking for illustrators. And I was working at the billboard thing, very unhappy there because it was grueling work for very little pay.
yeah,
And in terrible conditions too, in a big warehouse, and it was like blistering hot in the summer and really cold when we get cold here. But anyway, I digress. Uh, I answered this ad for McDonnell Douglas, and what it was they wanted people. Again, this is before Photoshop, before CG and 3D rendering was accessible, like really accessible to the masses. They wanted people who could paint photorealistic paintings of a proposal of a plane that they wanted to build for
yeah, yeah.
the king of where was he? Saudi Arabia, the king of Saudi Arabia. And I showed them my portfolio. I got hired right away, and that is what we did. They had the plane built. This is the only 3D that came into it. They had the plane built in a program called CAD, and it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just a
yeah,
wireframe. It couldn't even do ellipses or circles.
yeah,
So if you had a rounded back chair, it was just straight, and we had to go in and make it what it was supposed to be. But so they could find angles of all these proposed different rooms. They'd give us this CAD, really crude line drawing, and we'd take that. And from there, we painted these elaborate, as realistically as we could with gold and all this satins and everything like that. It was all hand painted.
yeah,
And that job where I got paid a really good wage to do it. I was in a nice office with air conditioning and a commissary, and I was like, oh, this is what a real job is. Not working in a warehouse, for terrible
yeah,
money painting billboards. And that was the thing that said, and after that job ended, because it did have and it wasn't forever.
yeah.
I
Well,
remember saying to my wife, really quick, I remember saying to her, I can't go back to the billboard place. If I go back there, I'm going to get stuck. I
yeah.
need to go forward. I can't go backwards. I need to be treated the way I want to have a job that's like what I just left. And 3 months later, the Disney job came.
And the Disney job, I mean, we look at the list of credits, the things that you worked on there. And again, a web page just reduces these down to lines, but every one of them must be a story and a half. I mean, I love The Hunchback of Notre Dame
Yes.
in terms of bold swings. At a point where you could take a bold swing, that's still an incredible film. You got Hercules on there, Atlantis, Jeffrey Katzenberg's Passion thing, Fantasia 2000, wasn't it? I
Yeah.
remember, yeah, he was Home on the Range, which has really great songs and score to it as well. It's the
It
film that no
actually
one
had,
went.
and really
Yeah,
great backgrounds.
yeah,
Like it
yeah.
had a great style to it.
So tell me, I mean, just pull out a couple of stories from your Disney time, because clearly that's hugely formative in why we're here.
Okay, so I was hired specifically to work on Fantasia 2000. And those were small shorts if you've
Yeah,
anyone who's seen it. So each short was like a little mini movie. So we'd work on one, then there'd be some downtime, and I'd get loaned out to Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I'd work on that for several months. And then they were like, okay, we're ready with the next one. You need to come back. And I'd work on that for 8 months or something like that. And then there'd be a downtime and be like, we're going to put you on Hercules while you're waiting for the next one. So um, the first one, this is the best Disney story I have. So the first one that I worked on was the Pines of Rome, which is the one with the flying whales,
got it. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And the first thing they had me paint was this 50 layer deep. Now, this is when we were painting on like acetate cells. And they would do a thing like
yeah.
the camera, things would go by the camera like this. I painted this one that was 50 layers deep of just it was the this baby whale swimming through an ice cave, and
Yeah.
all these ice stalactites were going by like this, and each one of those was on a different layer. So that was the first thing that I ever painted, and
And
that
that
was
was
the
that
first.
if that was going on IMAX screens as well, wasn't it? I
Yes,
remember that was a big thing
I
that
saw
an
it on
animated
IMAX. It was
film was my God. Okay, so I just want to bring in the scale of what you were having to do was
yeah,
more than Disney had done previously.
yeah.
Was it the first one they did for IMAX? Yeah.
So that was the first short to be completed. And so we had a little mini screening for the crew in a small screening room that we had in the building I worked in.
Yeah.
And I was running a little late that day, but I wanted to make it in there. I ran into the thing like 2 minutes before before we were supposed to start, and I found a seat. And then next to me were all these seats that had tape on them, but there was one that didn't. So I sat in the one that didn't because that's all I could find. 30 seconds later, a person comes over, peels off the tape, and Roy Disney sits next to me. And I'm like, oh my God, this is never going to happen again. Say something, you idiot. And I turned to him and I went, Mr. Disney. And he goes, Roy. You had everybody first name basis. And he
Yeah.
goes,
Yeah.
it's Roy. And I go, okay, Roy. I go, I'm about to watch the first artwork that I've done for the Disney feature animation, and I'm doing it sitting next to a Disney. And he said, and I quote, well, this must be very exciting for you, young man. What's your name?
That, to be fair to you, that's about the perfect thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, it
I
was
mean,
the best moment in my
I
Disney
love
career.
that.
It was so cool.
I love that. He didn't storm out halfway through and take the edge off it, did he?
No, he liked
Love that.
it. He was pleased.
I mean, that was an extra. I remember Fantasia 2000 as an extraordinary project, and I didn't expect we'd go down this road, but because the idea at that point was it was going to be the living movie, wasn't it? That every
Right.
10, 15 years they'd go back
Exactly.
and another sequence or two are put in. So you
That's
could have
right.
had a career just being,
Just
yeah. I mean, the ambition for that was off the chart, if memory
yeah, that's
serves.
absolutely true.
And
And
that was
my
your
other
first.
that was my first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I was still a trainee at that
Because,
point.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
So I eventually,
Fantasia, I mean, just for the background for people who aren't familiar, Fantasia at this point is the biggest selling VHS of all time. Because it was, yeah. It was because Disney had, Jeffrey Katzenberg, then heading up Disney Against People, had done a thing where you'll never be able to buy this version again.
that's right.
And so it outsold every other Disney film. And it was their biggest deal, was my memory of it
Yeah.
going in. And you're on it, you're at the heart of it.
When you said I'm on it, I literally am on it.
Yeah.
So in the new one, there were, if you again for people who have seen it, there's an animated bit, and then there was a live action bit that they called the
Yeah.
interstitial.
Yes.
And a famous person, Steve Martin, all
Steve
these
Martin,
different
yeah.
people came up. Yeah. So if you look at those, it's in a sound stage, but it's made to look like tiers of an orchestra. And on one side, there were orchestra people, and on the other side, you see these people painting like on easels. And all the ones in the way back are extras, but they wanted in the first couple of rows real Disney artists. And I am in the movie pretending to paint something with friends and colleagues standing next to me. And so, yeah, I gave about everything I could for that movie. Yeah.
And so again, for context, you were in your 20s,
Yeah.
3 years before you've been in a warehouse, um, painting billboards, and now
Yeah.
you're on an IMAX screen,
Yeah.
as part of their most ambitious project at that point.
Yeah.
That's extraordinary. Extraordinary. And then, I mean, you just list the other films around at that time that I mean, you're talking about, I was loaned to Hunchback of Notre Dame and Hercules. And no,
Yeah.
you're not being like loaned to a straight to DVD sequel. You're not being loaned to Pocahontas 2, are you? No disrespect to that.
Yeah. Right.
You know,
But still,
it's like the A
exactly.
grade stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how at the time it worked. They had a core group of people, background, let's say the background painting department, and like half of them were on one movie, and the other half were on another. And then as a new project came, the one that was first would leapfrog over that, start the new project. These people would finish their project, and they leapfrog onto the next one. That's kind of how it went. So
Yeah,
you always had work. And they don't want to get rid of you. At least back then, you were, I mean, I was contracted. It was very, very, very different times back then, animation studio wise. And yeah, they would just find things for you to work on, but all within the feature animation bubble. So yeah,
yeah.
I got to work on all these A-list, uh, late 90s, early 2000 animated movies. So yeah, it was literally a dream come true.
It does beg the question why you left.
Oh, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay.
Appreciating like the shifting tides of animation and Disney at that
Why
point.
I didn't leave. I was okay. So here's the I'll do this as quick as I can. Um, uh, Background painting is, hand done discipline that doesn't have isn't a one-to-one
Yeah,
translatable thing in CGI movies.
yeah,
You need painters and you need that, but in a different way, and you don't need, we had probably at the height 60 background
yeah,
painters so when Disney announced that they were putting out Chicken Little, the first CG movie that they
yes,
were
I
going to do
remember
there,
that.
remember?
2005,
Right.
2006-ish, wasn't it? Yeah,
They had massive layoffs,
yeah,
and then the people who stayed there, they cut everybody's salary. It was like they trimmed everything. And long story short, I was one of the last four traditional background painters staffed at Disney Feature Animation. And we were working on a project that was going to be kind of like a hybrid movie that was going to be done at the Florida studio. So I was on loan to the Florida studio with
yeah,
three other friends of mine. And it was going to be like hand painted backgrounds or maybe digitally painted backgrounds with 2D traditionally animated
yeah,
characters on it. And that looked like it was going to go. We went to, like, I remember a screening. It went really well. We were told, oh, we're going to start hiring actors, blah, blah, blah. A week later, I remember walking into work
yeah,
and the three other background painters were already there and you could just see it on their faces. And I
yeah.
said, well, what's up? And they said, do you want to go read the email or do you want us to tell you? I said, why don't you just tell me?
You
They
got an
said,
email.
yeah, they said, the movie's been canceled. And I go, so where does that put us? Because we're not on Chicken Little and they're
Yeah,
fully staffed. They said, we're in limbo. So this is how it all happened. So I actually got paid not to come into Disney for a couple of months while
yeah,
they were figuring things out. And at the time, my attorney was like, you may want to start looking
yeah,
somewhere else. So at the time, Sony Pictures Animation was starting up. It was a fledgling new company.
yeah,
And a few of my friends had gone over there. One in particular was one of my mentors at Disney. His name's Mike Humphreys.
yeah.
And Mike was production designing their first CG animated movie.
Was that
He
open
heard that I,
season?
what's that?
Was it
Open
open
season.
season, their first
That
one?
is open season.
Yeah,
So he heard I was in limbo. He contacted me. He had me come down and see what they were doing. I met the director. She said, literally, and I quote, please come work on our movie.
yeah,
And so, at the advice of my attorney at the time, I said, I'm going to go quit Disney and I'm going to go work at Sony. He said, don't quit.
yeah,
He said, because they're going to lay you off because there isn't work and you can get severance.
yeah,
And so I held on the start date. So I had this meeting where I had to go talk to human resources or whatever to find out my fate.
Yeah.
And literally, I had it set up that the next day I was going to start at Sony because regardless of what they told me in that meeting, which I knew was going to be,
Yeah.
we're sorry, I was going to go work at Sony because I was kind of excited to go do something new. And anyway, they did say in that meeting, we're sorry, this is a quote too. Um, there's just no room for background painters at Walt Disney Feature Animation. Isn't that the saddest sentence you've ever heard? But I did get a severance, and the next day I started at Sony. And the way I always talk about that transition is for anyone who's seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movie,
Yeah.
remember where he's pulling into port and the boat is sinking? And I'm like, the sinking boat was Disney. And then right before it goes under, he steps
Yeah, I
onto a
remember it.
dock. I was like, that's the perfect visual analogy for what I felt like I just went through. Disney went through some tough times at the end, and they were
Yeah.
slashing and burning, and salaries were getting cut. So when Disney was great, it was great, and then it wasn't, and it was time, and you could just feel it was time for me to move on. Best move I ever made.
Well, it sounded like you'd be able to upgrade your futon for a start. I mean, you get the severance and the new job. I do remember I interviewed in a long time ago, Ron Clements and John Musker when they came to
Yeah,
do Princess and the Frog, and that they talked about the only reason Disney still had the hand-drawn equipment they needed was because people had disobeyed orders and just stacked it away in cupboards and stuff.
Mhm.
They'd had the
I
email saying get rid of it all.
Absolutely. No,
Terrifying.
by that time, I Disney was good to me, and I
Yeah,
bought
yeah,
my first home in '96 here, and this house that we're talking from, I was able to do because of Disney. So it was the greatest finishing school for me.
yeah,
I learned how to collaborate, work with people. I became a, in 1 year of painting constantly every day,
yeah.
9, 10 hours a day, I became a much better painter, understanding things that I never really kind of thought about, color, the use of color and lighting to tell stories. Learned that all at Disney. And I
Yeah.
thank them for that opportunity, and it was great. But when it was time to go, it was time to go.
I mean, it
So
sounds like a marked contrast from the 10-year-old introvert, that the fact you're in that environment and
yeah,
with a bunch of people who presumably you could relate to, who just like had some of the shared headspace.
I had a friend of mine visit me, a high school friend visit me out in Los Angeles, and I gave him a tour of Disney Studios. And he saw all the things, all the toys and
Yeah.
everything, all this stuff, and he just went, "Dude, you're home. This is
Oh,
you."
isn't that lovely?
Yeah, and I was like, "I am home. These are my people. Very like-minded. We're all super nerdy about and passionate about what we love." And it was a great place to
So,
start.
so if your first home is arguably the most legendary American animation studio on earth, the
Yeah.
second home is one that's basically building from scratch, where you're in on the ground floor. And just for again for those listening, your credits at Sony take you from Open Season, Arthur Christmas with my beloved Aardman, Hotel Transylvania, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2, the Emoji Movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I mean, there's quite a progression there. I paid money to see the Emoji Movie, so I feel I can happily say that is one of my least favorite on your resume.
That's absolutely fine, but the artwork
Yep.
was
The
really fun.
artwork was sublime. I wrote a review of that film saying I read the credits and felt sad.
Yeah, the
There were
movie's
so
very
many
but
brilliant people, but a movie for the wrong reasons. I'm not going to
yeah.
dwell on the Emoji Movie there. Tell me about the progression then through there, because
So
Open Season 2 Spider-Man is quite a journey.
here was the thing is Disney, again, as wonderful as it was, it is very pigeonholing,
Yeah,
meaning that like you're a background painter,
yeah,
you paint backgrounds, and you're like, could I do development? Go up on the third floor and work with the development team? No, they're the development team, you
yeah,
paint backgrounds. When I went to Sony, there is no backgrounds because it's CG. I was, for the first time, a visual development artist. And that was such a coveted thing at Disney that all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, I'm in this position that I always wanted to be in. And I was helping to design the look of movies. So cool.
yeah.
So that was open season. I did things on that movie that I had never been asked to do in the 9 years that I was at Disney, I
Yeah.
was helping with color scripts and doing all these things that I never was asked to do. And I was, a team of many that helped shape the look of that movie. And by the time it was done, I had been there a year and a half, and I was offered my first art directing gig. 9 years at Disney, the
Yeah.
closest I ever got to ever being promoted was somebody said, "We have our eye on you." That's as close as I ever got.
Yeah.
Year and a half at Sony, I was made art director of the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs movie.
What a project that is as
Yes.
well. What a project.
So good. Chris and Phil, Lord and Miller, however you know them,
Yeah.
this was their first real big thing coming in and directing and everything. And it was just a fun project. It's as fun as the movie appears. And I'll never get to work on a movie that weird looking and still told ever again. And it was, yeah, that was a great one to
Did
get
you
my.
know? Did you know ahead of the cast and crew screening of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs that they put a credit at the start saying a film by a lot of people as
We
opposed to a
saw
film
that.
by Lord and Miller?
They did that in the storyboard version that we
Yeah.
saw, and we knew at that moment, like these are good guys, and
Yes.
they get that it's like, okay, their name is the directors on it, but it takes another 500 people
Yeah.
behind them
Yeah.
to make this. And so we were super appreciative of that.
One of the things I really love about the film is the character of the dad in that film has no
Mhm.
eyes. And just it just breaks the rule of
Yes,
animation. Yeah,
yes. You
all you
see him
see
in
is his
that one
eyebrows.
shot,
Yeah,
his eyebrows
once.
do come up
Yeah,
at the end. He looks at Flint and gives him a stare. But
I,
yeah.
and I listened to an interview they did where they talked about the number of times they nearly got fired from that job. The number that because of their way of working just wasn't conventional. They were pushing against the boundaries what do you remember about that time? Because you worked with them again on Spider-Man then, of course.
Yeah. I mean that is absolutely true. I remember the first version we saw of that movie. Now, normally movies are three-act movies. Theirs was four, possibly bordering on five. Like so, like they had so much. It was like a wealth of riches and ideas and everything like that that they eventually whittled down to the movie that you saw. But like, yeah, they were unconventional. And that's their
Yeah,
strength. You know what I mean? They pushed me to get out of my Disney comfort box. Um,
yeah,
can
yeah.
can we say bad words on this podcast?
Which one are you? I mean, help yourself. I don't mind.
So the best compliment you could have gotten on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is especially when Phil Lord would go, "That is so shitty. It's awesome."
Love it.
Because that town, the town of Swallow Falls,
Yeah.
needed to look downtrodden. Like the town you grew up in, I guess. Like you were
Yes,
saying,
we were having that chat just before we came on about
yeah,
my beloved hometown of Birmingham. For context, for people listening,
yeah.
its first big moment, really, in a Hollywood film was when Steven Spielberg, with Ready Player One, was looking for a future rundown shithole dystopia, and he came to my hometown. God bless that man.
And so the first artwork I did for them still had that Disney tinge to
Yeah,
it, like clean and everything was
yeah.
nice. And they were like, no, no, embrace telephone wires and grime and dirt and
Interesting.
things like that. And it got me out of this sort of place that I normally would go to because of 9 years of working at Disney.
Because
And
presumably Open Season as well had been crewed up by lots of people fleeing from Disney to Sony then, and there
true.
was a little bit of that culture went with it.
And also, that movie was based on Ivan Earl, who
Right.
is a Disney legend. Go watch Sleeping Beauty and things like
Yeah.
that. Watch Sleeping Beauty and then watch Open Season, and you'll go, "Oh, I see."
Okay.
So I was still waiting in the Disney style, but in 3D. Cloudy was not that.
Yeah. It's an astonishing film. It's still, I mean, it still holds up. Um,
I,
and I had a
I
rule with my kids, which is how I ended up watching the Emoji Movie, where whatever they asked to see, I'd take them to see it as long as it was on at the cinema, and they could do it. And so I watched everything. And when you see something that's just like willing just to take a swing, because there's a lot of animated films I just think are
Yeah.
surrogate babysitters, which is fine. I'm a tired parent. Sometimes that do. But when you see someone's gone, oh, all right, that's something. Cloudy with a Chance is a very special film.
Agreed. And I think it was their being Lord and Miller boldness
Yeah.
that if you look now at the slate of all the movies that have come out of Sony
Yeah.
Pictures Animation, no one movie looks like the other. There is no
Yes.
house
A
style.
DreamWorks is only just breaking that now, isn't it? After about
A lot
30
of people,
years.
yeah.
Only now, 30 odd
I
years
think
in.
Spider-Verse showed people, they
Yeah.
went, "Oh, can we do that? We can do
Yeah.
that." Oh, okay. It took that long, but Chris and Phil were already there in 2000, what was it, seven or eight, or when we were making that movie with Cloudy and just wanting to push, 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 push. And
Can
so
I just name check you've been back at Sony doing K-pop Demon Hunters, which my
that is
12-year-old
true.
is obsessed with at the minute. I told him
Yeah.
I was going to talk to someone who worked with that, and as far it's like I've got Tom Cruise on as far as he's concerned.
Oh, don't be that. I only worked on it for a handful of months, and then I got put onto a new project that I'm on currently, and I can't remember if it's been announced
Don't get
publicly or
yourself into
not.
trouble.
So
Don't get
I'm
it.
on a
Let's
new
just say,
project that I really, really, really love, and
can
it's
I
going
can
to
I
be so much fun.
can I just ask what the Disney project is that was cancelled? Is that what you one you can mention? Because you talked about there was a film that you were developing in Florida, and you had the
Oh,
thought,
it was
but I
called, it had several names. The one that I think was the most common one, it was called My Peoples.
yeah.
And that's a term from the South that, these are my peoples. And it was about this guy who made these like folk art characters out of found objects and junk and stuff like that. And they came to life and they were helping him. Gosh, it's been a long time. I think helping him get the girl kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting premise and it had some really funny moments in it. And yeah, that was one of those. I think it's actually in a book that is out there about lost projects at Disney. I think it
I'll
it
go
gets a
hunting.
couple pages in there.
You said earlier on that you were an absolute nerd of Warner Brothers shorts, that
Yeah.
you could recite Warner Brothers
Yeah.
shorts. I could test you on them if I'd prepared questions. But as
Uh,
I understand it, you ended up at Warner Brothers Animation because of LinkedIn, of all
yes.
things. Is that
How did
true?
you know that? Oh my gosh. Okay, so no, that's totally true. So I did almost 14 years at Sony, and I kind of like how at Disney you can just kind of feel when the tide is shifting. I
Yeah.
had done great things at Sony. They had given me opportunities that I had never got to do at Disney, and I thanked them for that. But I was at this place where I was just kind of being loaned to different shows, painting a little here, painting a little there, and I wanted to, and I had um, production designed Hotel Transylvania 2. And
Gendy Tartakovsky.
that is true. That's right. And
Yeah.
it was such a great experience being a lead and working with, putting together that team, as you and I talked before this interview, about what it's like to put together teams and get the right people together to make this look. And I had people who were, you know, stone cold veterans and other people. It was
Yeah.
literally their first film, and that was amazing. That was amazing. And I was like, I want to do this more. And the opportunity wasn't finding itself at Sony. And then just like a miracle, I got this LinkedIn email from producer Pam Coates saying, "We've seen your portfolio, we've seen your movies you've worked on. We'd
Yeah.
like to talk to you about production designing a project here at Warner Brothers." And she said, "Would you just want to have lunch with Tony Cervoni, who is our director of this movie Scoob,
Yeah.
the first CG Scooby-Doo?"
Yeah.
And Tony and I, he is a nerd like me. He can quote things. He is a big Warner Brothers like shorts. He has worked on many, many, many things. And the two of us just had a meeting of the minds. We had a great lunch together. And this is a true story on both ends. I left that lunch and got into my car. I called my wife and I said, I'm not a betting man, but I guarantee they're going to offer me this job. And Tony told me that he went to his wife, who is Alison Abate, who was the
Oh,
head of,
oh God, producer of Iron Giant, and
yes, but
yeah,
also at the
she was
time
like,
she was
yeah,
the head of Warner Brothers Animation.
yes,
He told
worked on all the
me
Tim Burton stuff. Yeah,
that is exactly right. He told me he went to Allison and said, I think I just met our production designer. So, like right after the lunch. So, we
yeah,
both did that. And sure enough, a week later, I got the offer. And so I said, I felt like, okay, this is it, Uh, this was the universe tapping me, and it was like it was my choice. Do I listen and or do I stay here at Sony and hope for something to happen? And I was like, no, this is it. They're offering me what I want. So I left my home at Sony, really good. We
yeah,
left in good status, come back anytime kind of thing.
yeah.
That was really important that I didn't want to burn that bridge because it was my home for many
Yes, the
years.
foresight there. Yeah,
So I went and I had such a great experience making that movie, Scoob,
yeah,
especially because Tony's trust in me was like, he's like, I'm going to be so busy doing all the other things that a director does. He's like, just make it look good. He's like,
yeah,
yeah, I'll look at things. Yeah, I'll have opinions. He's like, just hire the team and make it look great.
yeah,
And so a lot of trust, and it was such a good experience. Such a good experience.
yeah.
Yeah, and it fortunately the poor movie we all know was supposed to come out in May 15th, 2020. Well, where were we all on May 15th, 2020? We were sitting on our couches in our homes because of COVID. And so it didn't come out in the theaters like it was supposed to. It was the first run movie to
Yeah,
stream. And I never saw numbers because streaming numbers are like, they're
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
fancy. You don't know what they are. So that's what
We
happened to that movie.
well, we watched it. I remember when that landed. It
Thank
was
you.
it was certainly watched in this house, and also it was within a matter of months. It clearly must have done well enough that a follow up was announced. They didn't wait around.
Here we go.
Really, well, I feel yeah, and it's just like we've had the most delightful upbeat conversation. I feel really quite bad just going to this bit. But it's just your story here is extraordinary for all the wrong reasons. So it
Yeah.
sounds like you got your dream, and
Yeah.
then something happened to you, which has happened to what, four, five directors at a major movie studio in
Yeah.
decades. I can't think of. Can you put it a bit in your own words and how comfortable you are going
I
into
will.
it?
Okay. So just to go, I had been, I'm going to go back to 2009 really quick when I'm still at Sony.
Yeah,
I had an idea for a movie that I wrote and did a like 26-page treatment of, and I
yeah,
actually sold it to Sony.
really,
And yes, but unfortunately, Sony every few years went through a regime change. So every
yes,
time a person went out and a new person came in, it took just a year for them to even realize that they owned this project. And then I had to like pitch it all over again and get them to fall in love with it, hopefully. And so it never got any traction.
yeah.
And I have to say, the movie was called If, and it was about imaginary.
Imaginary Friends,
So you'll know
John
my,
Krasinski. Yeah.
yeah, that movie tore my heart out when I saw the exact same title and the very similar premise. I am not saying anybody stole anything. This is just one of those things out
No,
in the ether.
and to be clear, I interviewed John Krasinski for that film, and he took me into the genesis of how he came up with it.
Oh, I'd
And
love to.
yeah,
Okay, I'm going to go into your archives. I got to watch that because I have no
yeah,
idea.
I will. I'll send you that after. Oh, so the movie that you pitched then appears as an expensive Paramount movie,
Yeah,
looking entirely coincidentally like the movie that you saw.
yeah, and so that was sad, but the good thing that came out of it was to have an executives at a major studio say to me, this is a good idea.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas, lots of ideas. And I'm like, well, if they thought that was a good idea, what about this other one? And I started writing. And to date, I've written like 6 movies. Haven't gotten any other, I haven't got lightning to strike again, but um, it was something that I knew I wanted to do was write and or direct a movie.
Yeah.
So when I went to Warner Brothers, I was like, okay, this is it kind of, even though it's Warner Brothers and they've been around forever, Warner Brothers animation, pictures animation was still like always finding itself and it was
Yes.
small. And I
Yeah.
was like, this could be the opportunity if I pitch things and get to know people, get them to trust me as more than just a guy who paints pretty pictures. Maybe I could impress on somebody enough that they would trust me in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And that's what happened after Scoob. Allison Abate, who I and Tony, her husband, my
Yeah.
director on that. I got a call from Tony, and they were like, "Hey, HBO Max wants to make a sequel,
Yeah.
actually a prequel. They want to make something based on Scoob." And I didn't let him finish. I went, "I'm in. I'll production design it. You
Yeah.
got it." And he went, "No, we want you to direct it." That was it. I finally got what I had been working on since 2009 and that inkling of maybe I could do this.
Yeah.
And I got it. And I felt like I was being punked when I was told the parameters of it. It was like, okay, here's what we want. We want it to look as good as Scoob, but you have half the money to make it. You have half the time to make it. You have 18 months to make this movie, and all we have is a 2-page treatment that we're going to be, our writer is going to be writing while you're making the movie.
Right.
That was my first,
So you're making an animated Blumhouse film. You've basically got a house and characters.
and I took it on with, I was a co-director with Bill Holler,
Yeah.
who was the lead animator on Scoob,
Yeah.
and we knew each other from the past too, so that was a really good partnership. But yeah, I co-directed and I was the production designer of Scoob Holiday Haunt, is what the
Yes.
movie is called. And for those of you who have seen Scoob, the first like 12 minutes is them as children, and we see
Yes.
how
Yeah.
Mystery Inc. became Mystery Inc. And that was on Halloween, again, for those who have seen it. This movie was to take place not a little less than 2 months later. It's December. It's the gang's first Christmas together, and a mystery presents itself. And it's where we see them go from being friends to becoming family, to
Yeah.
really bonding. It's, yeah, they solved their first mystery in Scoob, but this is a biggie and it's personal. And so it was supposed to be how we watch them really even growing more as friends. And you see, okay, this is how Mystery Inc. really became
Yeah.
Mystery Inc. And it was a Christmas movie. So it was like a Christmas mystery
Yeah. Oh,
movie.
very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's such a good movie.
Tell
Um,
tell us that, because that's the story that's lost amongst the
okay,
clickbait. Tell
let me,
tell me why it's a good movie.
okay, I'm going to, first of all, let me start very, listen to this cast.
Yes.
Okay. Listen to this cast. This isn't like we got D-list actors.
Yeah.
I got to work. Okay. Going back to 10-year-old Mike,
I know where this is going.
Mark Hamill. I got to direct my hero when I was 10 years old,
Yeah.
Mark Hamill. And he's incredible. I am goosebumping right now just saying this, like
Yeah.
remembering sitting here because we did it during COVID and directing him. And I was like, how did this how did this happen? I have his action figure right over there. His X-Wing is right there. I mean, it's like, how? How did this happen? And I tried to be so cool, like, like
Yeah.
this was, yeah.
No chance. No
I never
chance.
said the word star or wars
He knew
even
you were,
close to
he
each
so
other.
knew you were thinking it.
So, I'm going to tell the story and then I'll go to the rest of the cast. One of the last times we recorded him, he was asking me if this movie ever comes out, I'm going to try to keep this, without giving anything away. A certain character is dying, powering down. And he's like, Michael, how do you want me to read this? And without even thinking, I knew how I wanted him to read it. I said, there's this movie where a dad is speaking to his son and he asks him to take his mask off so that he may look at him with his own eyes. Pause. Oh, you're talking about Star Wars. That was his response. True story. It's on tape. I can verify that. And it was like, he goes, I haven't seen that movie since I made it. He goes, but that's how you want to do it? Like kind of like staggered breath stuff. I was like, yes, yes, please. So I got to do that. And everybody at the end of it went, you did it. You actually nerded out in front
You're
of him.
such a
I was
nerd.
like, I
You're
couldn't
such a
help
nerd.
it.
Total respect. Total
Yeah.
respect.
So Mark Hamill, Michael McKean, that the
Yeah.
younger people will probably know from Better Call Saul, but who I know, my first thing is he was Lenny and Squiggy on the Laverne and Shirley show, and he was hysterical on that. But I love him in the Spinal Tap movie and the new one
Yes.
that's coming out. So
Yep.
he plays David St. Hubbins in Spinal Tap. To work with him, dream come true. Ming-Na Wen, who here's the little weird tie-in. Pam Coates was the who brought me in on Scoob, was the producer of the movie Mulan, which
Yes, which was
starred
done in
Ming.
Orlando, wasn't it?
It was, but I actually I was on loan to them. Like I explained, sometimes I would just go
Yeah,
on
yeah,
loan.
yeah.
And so I worked on Mulan and have a credit on it. And so and Ming was so cool. And when I mentioned that I had worked on Mulan, that immediately we had a little bond there, and that was super cool. And she's as cool as you think she is.
Yeah.
She is awesome. Um, this movie has the last acting performance
Yeah.
of Andre Braugher. Don't you think just for that this movie should come out? It's his last thing he did before he died.
Yeah.
Um, it has Maya Hawke in it, who was before she got to do the what's the movie, the Pixar one with the emotions. She did our movie. Ours was her
Yeah.
first animated movie. We had her first, and she was incredible. But going back to this, I did say when we
Yeah,
talked
it's
about Ted
Christopher.
Lasso,
I know it's going. I was waiting how long it would take you to get
there
to him.
was a role. A Hispanic. We wrote him as a Hispanic character, and I said, "There's only one person I want for this. I won't give you options. It has to be him." Because I was so enamored with Ted Lasso at the time, and they were like, "Okay, Ted Lasso was popular and anything. It
Yeah.
hadn't won any awards yet, but they were like, okay, we'll get him. It'll probably be easier now. And Christo is exactly the character from Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Literally, they wrote that role after meeting him to be him. He
So this is
is
Cristo Fernandez. Yep.
Cristo Fernandez is who plays Danny
Danny
Rojas
Rojas.
on Ted Lasso. He is such a great guy, and I fortunately got to hang out with him personally. He ate dinner here at this house, and it was so great. And he is literally exactly the same person as Danny Rojas. He is kind and sweet and exactly who you want him to be. And that was like a double whammy because that was like a new hero
Yeah.
of. And then, of course, the gang is the kids. It's Ian Armitage, which
Yeah.
everybody knows as young Sheldon, McKenna Grace, who most people would know now from the Ghostbusters movies with the
Yeah.
curly hair and everything. And Ariana Greenblatt, who was in the Barbie movie. A guy named Pierce Gagnon that most people that he does a lot of animated voices, but if you saw, oh shoot, now I'm blanking on the movie. What was that movie called? With Bruce Willis, and it's the time travel movie where he's young and he's
Looper, Looper,
what Looper.
Looper.
He's
Yeah,
he's the evil little kid in Looper.
he never is.
Yeah, that's Pierce. He barely remembers making that movie. He was so little, but yeah, Looper. Yeah. And then of course, I got to work with Frank Welker,
Yeah,
the original voice of Fred, the current voice of Scooby-Doo.
yeah,
Come on. Solid movie. And appearances by J.B. Smoove, Patrick Warburton. This was an all-star cast of a really good premise.
yeah,
And I'll say this, Tony, who was the executive producer of Scoob Holiday Haunt and the director of the first one,
yeah,
he will agree with me on this. So I'm not saying anything out of turn. It's a better movie than Scoob.
yeah,
Why? It really holds Scoob. We were literally going above the world, below the
yeah,
world, all these different places. It was a lot to get into a movie. This is like a glorified episode, Scoob Holiday Haunt is. Think of every episode. The gang goes to a place,
yeah,
mystery presents itself, they solve the mystery, and they leave. That's what this movie is they want to show Scooby the real what Christmas is all about because Scooby gets a little spooked by a Venice beach. Again, going back to my
I was
Venice
going to
beach.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we have a thing on the Venice boardwalk, which I was crazy familiar with. A Santa Claus, sit on the lap, tell him what you want kind of thing. Scooby gets all spooked from him, because he's like, oh, ho, 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 like too
yeah,
aggressive. And Scooby doesn't understand Christmas. He doesn't like Santa. He doesn't like any of it. Fred has an uncle, Uncle Ned, that is played by Michael McKean,
yeah,
who owns a Christmas themed amusement park. And he's like, if there's any place on earth that could teach Scooby why Christmas is so great, it's Uncle Ned's place. So they all go up there. And yes, there's a ghost and a mystery and a whole backstory and everything like that. And the kids solve it. And it's personal because it is affecting Uncle Ned. And so we have a more personal human connection between Fred, his uncle, and saving this business from a ghost.
yeah.
And it's great. It's a Christmas movie and it's an episode, and I couldn't be prouder of it. I couldn't. I've given
Love that.
everything. I gave everything I possibly creatively had to that movie. I did help make suggestions with the writing. I think there is one or two lines in the movie that actually, from script pages that I wrote, still survive there. But ideas definitely. Like I said, I production designed it, so look wise, it's there, and I gave everything creative that I could to this movie, and
It was,
yeah. Go ahead.
well, I was going to say, it was on August the 2nd, 2022. We found out from our side of the fence that it and Batgirl were no more. I've never reported on a story like it. And a lot of the attention was on Batgirl and on Adil and Bilal, the more expensive, higher profile of the films. And yet there was this family movie that just went at the same time. And
Yeah.
so I remember how I found out. How comfortable are you talking about your
Talk
side of
about it.
August 2022 or July 2022?
I was sitting in this seat. We were in the middle of a meeting where I was looking at artwork or something, storyboards maybe. My phone, which is always
Yeah,
right here, buzzed, and it was a alert from Twitter. I think it was still Twitter then. And it said, M. Kurinsky, which is my handle on it. M. Kurinsky, is this true? And I was like, what's that? And so while the meeting was going on, I hit it and looked at it. And it took me to the link that I think it was Deadline Hollywood or something like that had put out and said, this movie's being canceled. That is how I found out
so you found out on August
from a
the 2nd,
stranger.
2022,
Yeah,
the same
from a
time,
stranger on Twitter.
the same time as me, effectively.
Mhm.
So
In the middle of work, right in the middle of
you were
working.
still working on it.
Yeah.
you got sent a link to Twitter, which was linking to I mean, do you mind taking me through the next
I
three
will.
hours of
So
that? I mean,
Tony, executive producer of this movie, was on there, and I was like, Tony, what is this? What is this? Allison got involved, and she's like, I'm on this. I'm on this. We don't know what this means. We're gonna figure this out. And yeah, they being Discovery bought Warner Brothers,
yes,
and I've talked to people and they said this is unprecedented. It's never quite, movies have been canceled and things like that, but
yeah.
never quite this way.
I've reported on film for on and off for about 2 decades. I've never seen a story like it.
This movie was 8 weeks from completion.
Yeah,
And if the way I understood it, again, it was very vaguely explained to me. Um, if a company buys another company and there's properties and things that haven't come out already that they didn't have any hand in greenlighting or whatever, they could take 100% tax write-off
yeah.
on the movie. So they were going to get back $42 million for Scoob Holiday Haunt. And they decided to take that instead of putting it out. But because they had already paid vendors and things like that, it would have cost them to literally pull it out 8 weeks before we were finished. So we finished it. And those,
By choice, did you finish it, or you mandated to finish it?
we were asked to finish it and we wanted to finish it. But
Do you mind me asking who asked you?
um, well, Allison, Tony, we all talked about it. One of the co-presidents at the time, Chris Leahy, they they said yes, they want you to finish it, and so those are friends who came to us and
Yeah, yeah.
said those are friends. Like, but the people who canned it, I mean, you could say my name to them right now, and they have no idea who I am. I was just a name on an agenda and a phone call they had to make. And that's how I found out officially, was on the telephone, phone call. And
On the same day. Was that still on August the
that
2nd?
afternoon, about 4 hours later, something like that, I got a call, and that
What
was it.
what was the
That was it.
call?
The call was horrible. It just felt like somebody going through emotion and just like, yeah, we're not gonna put this out. And then she was just kind of condescending too, like saying, I showed it to my child, I can't remember, daughter or son, and they felt it's very young. It skews real young, doesn't it? It was really, really an awful thing to say. And
So in the midst of the call, just again, just to clarify this, telling you your movie's been canned, the person at the end of the phone is also critiquing your movie.
yeah,
Okay.
so it was humiliating and condescending, and I am getting choked up talking about it. That my whole career that I've talked to everybody on here about has always been on this kind of a trajectory. I never made less. I never took a job that went backwards.
Yeah.
It always went up until August 2nd.
Yeah.
And after that, everything has crumbled like a house of cards. Everything. And my health, my mental health, I am still dealing with this to this day in therapy because it has opened up all sorts of wounds in me that I didn't know I had. And I'm learning through therapy why I was such an introverted child, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It all comes into play. And this was the event that eventually all the things I've stuffed down about myself had to come out. And I'm dealing with them now. Still to this day, years later in therapy, I go every 2 weeks. And this has been the hardest thing. And I think one of the things that kills me is that, again, I could walk right up to the people that made this decision and say, hi, my name's Mike Kurinsky. And they would have no idea. They haven't thought about that, I guarantee, since that phone call. They haven't thought twice about it. And I've thought about it every single day for almost the last 3 years because it's snowballed into this place that I'm in right now, and it's really hard. It's really hard. And I wanted that so bad. I wanted it for so long, and to have it just taken away like that,
Y-
and it's like I've said many times, it's the if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it make a sound?
Yeah.
Now, I know that movie made a sound and everybody who worked on it made a sound, but I can go anywhere, trying to look for work and go, I made this movie. Did you hear about the movie I made? Oh, well, no, you can't see it, but I'm telling you, it's a really good movie. Do you know how hard that is? To know that you finally did this thing that only a handful of people get to do, is be a director on an animated film
Yeah.
with a good budget and everything like that. And you can't show them. You can't, there's nothing to point at. It's just your word against what they know. And, when things come out in the press and then people comment on it, I've read these comments that are, you guys out there that write these kind of comments. It really hurts for you to go, well, the movie obviously wasn't good. That's why they canned it. It's
Yeah.
no, it is good. I put my life into this movie. This movie is good and it's funny and it's heartwarming and it's a great evergreen Christmas movie that you could play for years and never have it feel dated. It's a good thing, and it's a shame. It is a complete shame.
You said that it crumbled for you. And I'm not trying to pry into personal matters, but on a professional level, I mean, you're working at Sony now. You said just before, but
Yeah.
what is the aftermath? Are you carrying the can for a corporate decision? Does it kind of feel a little bit like that? Was it how difficult was it to find the next job?
Well, can I go back just
You
one
your
tick?
your your yeah, your floor.
So the 8 weeks that we had to finish it, I want you to try and put yourself into my place. I had an entire crew of people that knew this is what was going to happen. It was not going to come out. And every day I had to get on here and keep them motivated and say, no, we need to paint this good. It needs to be lit well. It needs to be everything, on the hopes that maybe, maybe, maybe. And you're trying to keep the dream alive in their head so that at least they're not just like, why are we even trying? Why are we doing this? We're, this baby's never going to get born, So, that was every day I would do that. Um, the minute the day was done and the camera went off, it was all the energy that I had to keep the smile on my face and keep a positive face and keep everybody working and feeling like they were doing something productive and they weren't just wasting their time on a
Yeah.
movie that nobody's going to see. That was really hard 8 weeks. And then when it was done, um, I was still at Warner Brothers and going into work every day. Now, I couldn't talk about it really.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to keep my job there, which I don't know why I wanted to stay there, but I did at the time, every day I was going in there, I felt ill.
Yeah.
Every single day that I went in there, and I was becoming something that I didn't like. I was becoming bitter and sad and all these things. And um, long story short, I eventually not because of anything that I had done,
Yeah.
but they put a whole new leadership and everybody in there. And I understand when people come in, they want to bring in people they know and people they've worked with in the past. And I was told that they just couldn't find a place for me in feature animation at Warner Brothers. After all that I had done for them, they couldn't find a place for me and they let me go. So there I was back out there looking for work.
How long after that August was that? Was that in weeks or months?
It was actually, believe it or not, because I went on to, I helped out on the project Cat in the Hat, which is coming out,
Yeah.
I think, next year or something. I helped out on that for a while. And then uh, I was given an opportunity where it was an uncertain opportunity, but it was a step in the direction that I wanted to continue on,
Yeah.
writing things and directing. So I took a chance on myself. I gambled on myself and left Cat in the Hat to hopefully show this new regime something that maybe they would see what I had to get, the leaders of
Yeah.
Warner Brothers to see that I eventually got to direct something. And it didn't go anywhere. And after that, they just said, we don't have anything for you here. So I was let go. And that trajectory that I had always been on, I had never not worked.
Yeah.
Since I'm 15 years old, I've never not had a job ever. I've always worked. I worked through college. I worked through the last years of high school, college, and the minute I came out here, work. Just
Yeah.
work, work, work. And to be unemployed for over half a year, trying to find work right now, animation industry is weird, even for somebody
Yeah.
that has 30 years of stuff to show them, and it's just hard. So I got on at the tail end of K-pop, and they only needed me for a couple of months, and then they didn't need me after that, so I was unemployed again. And then I got picked up by this new show, and I'm very happy there, but I'm not a lead. I'm not directing it.
Yeah.
I went all the way back to the first job that I had in 2003 on open season. I'm a regular old viz dev artist again. So no shame in it. It's wonderful. And I'm doing I think some of the best work I've ever done. But I had this place that I thought my third act was going to be, and it's clearly not going to be that.
Oh, but your third act's not over yet. Your
I
third
don't
act's
know.
not over yet.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm a
I don't
great
know.
believer in that. But yeah, can I ask one more thing on Warner
You
Bros?
can ask
Because
me what you want.
the fate of the film is presumably out of your hands, and we've seen Coyote versus Acme bounce back, but no sign. I
Different
saw the
situation.
trailer actually for Scoob Holiday Haunt suddenly appeared too. I thought the whole thing was supposed to have been deleted or
It
something.
wasn't, no, that I know hasn't happened. They haven't deleted. And that wasn't a trailer. I'm not sure where those clips came from. There was no audio. I don't know, but I was really happy that it came out.
Yes.
I don't care how it got out there. Great. Here.
So to your, sorry, I didn't know this. To your knowledge, the film still exists.
Yes. I think it still exists somewhere on a server somewhere, you know, so that if anything miraculous happened, it could be pulled up and put out. But
Yeah,
it's different than the deal that they made with
I
Coyote
understand that.
and even like Gendy Tartakovsky's Fixed and things like that. It's a completely different. This movie can never be monetized, is
Yes,
the catch. It can never be sold. It can never be monetized, or else Warner Brothers Discovery has to pay back
42.
$42 million. So that's where we are. That's the limbo that we're at. I don't know what happens if somebody in 5 years buys Warner Brothers. Does that change the circumstance? I don't know because nobody told me.
I'm sort of
Nobody.
gratified it's not deleted. I thought that and Batgirl were gone. While it exists somewhere, while it
I'm
exists.
90% certain it still exists somewhere. And I actually have some people I could call right now and go, does it still exist? Because I don't think it was, I was at least, excuse me, was never told. And that would be really cruel if they did this and didn't tell me that they were literally going to delete this piece of it's a
It's
piece
art.
of
It's a piece of
art.
art. Yeah.
People drew things,
Brad
painted
Brad
things,
Brad
animated
Brad
things.
Brad Bird's Twitter bio always sticks with me. I love all the art. I love all the arts, but I love movies because it brings them all together.
Yeah,
Something along
the
those lines it
music.
is. Yep.
Dara Taylor did our score, and she's brilliant. And I mean, everything about it was just a beautiful, creative effort between a very small group of people because we didn't have the money. So it was like everybody was putting in double duty to make this movie happen. And remember, I gave you the parameters.
Yes.
We made it,
18 months from
we finished it.
sheet
If
of
none of
paper.
this nonsense happened, it would have come out on time and on budget. And that was from a first-time director, two first-time directors. So
Yeah. If you go back to
how
half of those Disney
how
productions that you
bad
worked on, yeah.
how bad did I have to be able to have no place at Warner Brothers? And I'm saying this, and I will look right at the camera and say, I will never, ever work for that company again. Ever.
My, I, I guess it's a tough question to ask, but it strikes me you never really had a right to reply to it. That David Zaslav, who's not a man I'm a great fan of, really,
Nope.
gave an interview where he talked about the deletion of Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Horn, and his quote was, "We decided that we had to have the courage," and he talked about the courage to delete, and this was reported widely. And by the look in your eyes, for those listening on audio, I don't think you've heard that quote before.
No, I had not. Courage would have been sitting down in front of me as a and looking at me as a human being and telling me this so that I could at least respond back and say, you know, you have killed my lifelong dream. I just want you to be aware of that. But because there was always this hope that the movie could survive, we weren't allowed to talk about it. I never got to express how I felt, sad, angry, everything else in between. Never got to express it. And that was another thing that kind of messed me up. Like I was sitting there holding this thing in and I'm working for this company still and I shouldn't be here because I was done so dirty, done so wrong by this company. And yet here I am still trying to work for it, trying to make everything work out and make my dreams without work out with a company that has done something really horrible to me. Really, really horrible. And they didn't care. They didn't care. I was not a person. I was a number on a ledger. The movie was a number on a ledger, and that's it. And that's really sad.
I want to go back, just kind of bringing it to now, but also going back to that 10-year-old, because the place we find you in now in the last 2-3 years is as you pointed out, it feels even from me, the other side of the camera, this feels like such a low point, and such a horrible thing to go through. I still find it quite extraordinary that I'm talking to someone as a 10-year-old, watched Star Wars, and it had such that level of impact that within, if I've got this right, within 10, 12 years of Star Wars, a 50-foot drawing of mine was overlooking Los Angeles.
That's
And I've not heard stories like that before. I hear stories of how people are influenced by a film and how it takes them on a different path. But in a short space of time, appreciating there's a crappy futon involved in that, and we shouldn't overlook that, your drawing is overlooking Los Angeles. And I've talked to lots of people on this podcast over the years, but in terms of a range of credits of work, and one of the reasons I wanted to get you on here and deliberately spend 80% of our time talking about the work
yeah.
that no one seems to talk about. And we've discovered some incredible stories here in a lifetime that otherwise could have been reduced to clickbait. And I think what you've proven is there's just so much more story in there. And I wonder, I wonder, again, you've talked about your health, you've talked about therapy, you've talked about your career crumbling, and yet you're here, and
Yeah.
yet you're making a film, not perhaps in the way in the position you wanted to at this stage, but still you're active and you're still doing this job, you're still in this industry. Is there something ahead? Is there a goal ahead? Maybe not
Yes.
as high as once upon a time. Maybe it is. I don't know. But tell us what you're aiming towards, and tell us how we can help and support you.
Okay. So I love animation. I like making paintings. I like doing it. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I'm staying in here in this industry um, for a little while longer. And the goal is I want to retire sooner than later. And because of all things with pensions and
Yeah,
unions and everything like that, there are very specific, you need to have this many amount of hours, this you
yeah.
have to be this old. So I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. And I I think I want to shed having to rely on a studio to make me feel like I have worth or don't have worth. Um, and I'm just going to do what I want to do. And like I told you before, I have lots of stories and I've written scripts. And so when you ask what's next, I can see it right here. I can see the file right next to your window.
Yeah.
I have decided to take one of my scripts and I'm writing a novel.
Oh,
And
okay.
I am going to self-publish it. I am not going to I don't want to go into a publishing house because that might as well be going into a studio and
Yeah.
asking for their approval of my work. Whether do you think this is good? Do you think this is
Yeah.
bad? I know it's good. I know If was good. I know that because somebody made it and they put it out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they stole my idea, but I had that idea that could have been realized into a thing.
Yeah.
It would have been completely different and all of that, but I was on the right track. And so I am writing this novel, and hopefully by the end of this year, I am going to promote it. I'm going to self-publish it and try to do as much advertising as I can, try to rely on my past in animation, which, there are many animation fans out there saying, hey, here's a book from a guy who worked at all your favorite animation studios, worked on these movies. Maybe that'll get an audience. I don't
Yeah.
know. And this one idea now, it's I have a trilogy for it in my head, and that's what I'm going to do while I'm working and when I retire. This is what I want to do, and eventually do it with every story that's ever come in here that I was amused by. Um, because let's go back to that if a tree falls in the forest
Yeah.
thing. I have these ideas and I can't live anymore knowing that they are a little icon on my computer and nobody hears the sound. I am not doing this for money or
Yeah.
profit. I am doing this to get something that I believe in out into the ether, and then it's out there, and I can feel good about it. That it's not something that is just going to one day when I die go buried with me. It's out there. And if 10 people read it, I love you, 10 people. That's awesome. And that's all I want out of it is just to make sure that my voice was taken away when that movie was taken away. I won't have it happen again. And I'll find any way just to get my visions and things out there um, my way, my way.
You are that 10-year-old Michael Kurinsky looking up at the stars.
Yeah,
It strikes me you've kind of come full circle there. You
I think
know,
so.
your head is awash, your story's waiting to be told. And I wish you the best with telling them. I'm going to bring the recording to an end
Okay.
at this point, but this has been a lovely conversation, and I think I speak well. Apart from the bat, I'll rephrase that. This has been a really fascinating, candid conversation. I think you putting your story out there is a trail for others to follow. As dark as it's been in certain places for you, I thank you so much for your time.
And I
And
thank you
you've
for letting
sold
me.
well, you've sold one copy of your novel. I'll buy a copy of your novel.
Okay. That's
Michael
great.
Kurinsky, believe that sign behind you. Keep believing.
I try. That's
Take
why I
care.
keep it up.
Very wise. Take care.
Thank you.